Welcome back, guys, for more Timberborn, and in this episode I'm going to do a little tutorial on how to create natural looking terrain and turn something like this into something like this. When you're working on a small scale, terrain's pretty straightforward, but I'll show you some techniques that apply to even small scale stuff. But when you're building on the big scale, so like for example this place over here, let's say I wanted to fill this in and build a mountain on top, then it becomes a bit more difficult. Like, where do you even start? The way I like to approach this is to throw in just some big blocks like this, right? And create kind of a rough approximation of the shape that you want. I try to make it slightly smaller than I'm actually going to want, so that I can kind of have this as like a base and then start to build on top of it. Right, let's bring up the dev tools, which is Shift-Alt-Z, and start putting some stuff in. So you can see that I started with this huge big block, and then I started adding smaller blocks onto it to start to refine the detail. And that's what I continue to do. And you just get like smaller and smaller and smaller until you end up placing individual blocks or a few blocks at a time. So, for example, I know that I want kind of a ridge on the top of this mountain. So I might throw in kind of a bit of an extension here like this, and maybe take it up a couple of tiles like that. I know that this corner's going to be blended into each other. So maybe put a little block in here to kind of create closer to the shape. Or I might think, actually I want a cliff here, but the ground needs to blend into the cliff at the bottom. So maybe I'll throw in like something simple like that, just to start getting closer and closer to the image that I have in my mind. Now let's talk about a couple of techniques that I use to actually form the detailed terrain, which I call horizontal and vertical layering. So here is an example of vertical layering, where you've just got the terrain stepping up like this. So it goes up here, and then the next layer that comes out goes like this. This one steps up, and then this one kind of sort of mirrors it, but just comes out one. And then if we look at it horizontally, it's kind of the same thing. So if we look here, we've got this bottom layer, and then we've got this layer on top, which just kind of follows it, but is stepped in a little bit. Okay, fine. Got the principle. How do you actually do it? Okay, let's say that I want some kind of gently sloping terrain to form a kind of a little bit of an elevated plateau on top of this block. This is how I do it. So I'll put in a strip down there, right? That at its most basic is what we're trying to create. So we've got the terrain coming along here, and then it steps in, and then it steps in. Now I'll try and make it a bit more elaborate. So let's say that I wanted this to come out, say maybe 3 tiles or so. Then let's bring it out 3 tiles, and I'll put in a section, and then I'll go to 2 tiles and put in a section. This was already out a tile, so I'll come out 2 again, and then 1. Okay, awesome. Now, if I want this to come out like sharper at this end and more pronounced, then you just have shorter gaps at this end. And then you can control the angle of how the terrain comes round by just doing longer or shorter blocks. And then when you go up to the next layer, it's just the same thing, but just kind of follow the terrain. And then you can go up to the next layer and just keep going. And each time you step in 1 or 2 tiles or more if you want a shallower gradient. The other thing that you can do is you can step up 2 tiles at a time. So let's say you want a bit of a cliff going on. You want this to step up very, very quickly. What you can do is come up 2 tiles at a time. So now we've come up 2 tiles, and then I'll go up to the next layer, and I'll just throw something in quickly, and then do the same again and just take it up 2 tiles. And then once I'm up that 2 tiles, then I can start to play around with how quickly I want the terrain to come out and what kind of shape I actually want. And the thing to do is do little adjustments. So like you can do like chuck something in and then just start to kind of refine it until you get something that you're happy with. Now, when you do these 2 blocks high, right, if you just leave it like that, it tends to not really look that good. And the trick I find for making it actually look okay is to just extend a couple of these like this. Maybe one there. And then suddenly it kind of blends more. And you end up with something that's a little bit more attractive. Let's do the same on the bottom so you get the effect. So maybe we bring this out a little bit more like that. And then it's difficult on this one because it's very short edges. It's much better, much more effective on kind of longer edges. But even so, it still works. So we'll throw a couple in there, maybe like that. And you end up with something which kind of looks very, very similar to the kind of terrain that you see scattered around the map. Okay, so that's horizontal layering. Vertical layering is kind of the same thing, but just flip it 90 degrees. So instead of going along the ground like that, we're going to be going up. So let's put in a piece on the bottom like that, and then we'll start going up. So I just do shorter pieces. So you can see I'm building the same shape that I was building up there, but going vertically. Build a little bit there. And again, like if I want to go up quickly, then leave a short gap at the end. If I want to go up slowly, then leave a long gap at the end. Okay, excellent. Now let's do the next layer. So we put the next layer in. Let's say we want to step it up quickly at that point and then go slower towards the end. There we go. And you just build your layers up like that. Throw something simple in at first, and then you can start refining it. So I might want this to be a very smooth transition. If that's the case, then I want to keep these layers very close together. So for example, maybe I only come like one tile back from this. And so you can see it's mirroring it very closely. Let me put another couple of layers in. And you end up with something that's nice and smooth. But if you want it to look natural and not artificial, you want to put in just a few details to just break it up a little bit. So rather than mirroring it exactly, just throw a few blocks in to change some of the angle. So instead of not connecting, make the layers connect like that. And then maybe change the angle slightly. Maybe have a bit of a flat bit. So yeah, you just play around with it until you get something that's pleasing to your eye. So now I'm going to go around to this side and I'm going to start working on this side and see what I can create. The only real tip I can give you when you start doing this is like little steps, right? Like, so just down here, it's like, I know that this corner's going to come round, but I can't really figure out how that's going to exactly work. So just put a little bit in. So like down here, I know that I want kind of a bit of a plateau here with steep sides, but I want a flat area on top that I can maybe plant some trees on. Same probably over here. So, but I'm not sure like how big exactly. So maybe I'll just throw kind of a couple of layers in there and just start to develop it. I'm going to have probably this kind of, I guess I'm going to have kind of a horseshoe kind of thing going on. So maybe just throw a couple of blocks in there. And then when I look at it and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of heading in the right direction. So it's going to come out a bit like this, maybe. And that can come forward a bit, maybe go up. Yeah. We're kind of sort of heading in the right direction. And so then maybe I start to move to starting to create the layers. So then I might go over to this side and go, okay, so let's say that this comes in like this. And then I'll start doing my layering like this. And go up to the top and then go, yeah, that's fine. So we can go a little bit higher. And just start to develop those layers. Now, the problem with this is it's too even and it looks very artificial. Every one of these steps is 2 tiles. Doesn't look good. You need to break it up. Do something like this. So you've got, like now I've got a 3 and a 1, which looks much more natural. Right, so I'm just going to carry on doing this. And we'll see kind of where we get to. This is kind of another thing that I do, which is to just put in steps up like this to get me started. And then I'll start adding some layering onto that. So like this. And then just like go up a bit at a time. This is good for doing kind of like corners. Because you kind of work your way up layer by layer. Right, let's see if I can actually make some progress and turn this into something that looks vaguely like a mountain. Well, after a bit of work, we're starting to head in the right direction. So you can see that I've built up this kind of little flat plateau on top of a steep bit. so that I could plant some trees up here or something. And the same thing over here. Now, I'll try and point out like what I've done well and what I've done badly and what I need to work on. If we look at the horizontal layering, we can see that that's not too bad. And it looks nicely broken up. If we look at the vertical layers, you can see kind of the lines of the cliff going up. And that works quite effectively. This part over here is quite good as well. Where it's bad, if we look at this, there's way too much like horizontal stuff, which isn't helping kind of the flow of the terrain. Yeah, this definitely needs some work, this area. Let me give you an example of a really bad piece of terrain. Right, if we come over here, this piece of terrain here is kind of heading in the right direction. I've got my... You can clearly see the layers developing, right? If we look at the other side, this looks just like a pile of rubble. There's something seriously wrong with this. I need to work on this and get this sorted out. Now, this is kind of cliff detailing, where you've got like a sheer cliff. What you do is you just put in a couple of layers, like well spaced out, just kind of indicating the direction of the terrain. You can see that just adding a few bits. I mean, this is not finished, but just adding a few bits, it makes it a lot more interesting than just a plain wall. Right, I'm going to get back to this and see if I can make some improvements. And I'm going to start working on the other side. Okay, well, after a lot more work, things are starting to come together. See, this is the problem. There's something wrong with my brain because, like, for most people, I think they'd be like, oh my God, this is a tedious process. But I really get into this and I love doing it. It does kind of absorb the hours, though. That's for darn sure. I wanted to show you this kind of part up here because this is a good example of that horizontal layering that I was talking about. And I kind of brought this out here, and then I've just been doing the layers. And I've just been extending it and stepping it out. So I want this to come out a little bit further. So let's do a little bit and you'll kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to do. So I'll extend this out to like, say, maybe here. And then maybe extend it out this way a little bit. And then I just start kind of expanding it towards the edges until I get something that I'm kind of happy with. Let's just step this out towards this edge. I want this to be a fairly shallow gradient at the top, so I'm going to leave a nice space in between each layer. And then we'll bring this layer out a little bit. Let's see, how do I want to do this? So step it like this kind of thing to there. Fill that bit in. I'll bring this out a little bit. Now, I'm not really following this edge, so now I'm going to turn to this side and start to bring this out a little bit. So, something like this. Okay. Yeah, that's turning out not too bad. I must admit, I did get very absorbed in this side, so I haven't really started on this. I started to throw a few bits in, but I didn't get very far because I got absorbed. It's easily done. It's very easily done. Now, this is what you've got to watch out for. Like, I've just got like 3 blocks like that. That's not a good thing. And see, I was going to do it again. It's very easy to kind of get into that trap of doing that. So, yeah, so you need to kind of force yourself to put some gaps in. What I'm actually going to do here is instead, I'm going to come out this way a little bit. So I've got a 2 there. I'll bring this out, say maybe a 3, and then I'll turn the corner and start coming along here like this. So you can see on this side, I'm trying to create like a steeper edge. So I've only left like a 1 tile gap, like all the way along. Whereas on this side, I want a shallow gradient. So I've left a bigger gap in between each layer. Now, I suppose is this a tip? I guess this is kind of a tip. Like here, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, you know what? This needs to go up a little bit. So the way I would do that is to turn this layer into a 2 high layer. Right, and start stepping it up in 2s like I've got here. So what I would do is start at the top layer, take that up a layer, right? Then go down and fill in the next layer like that. And then go down to the next layer and fill that in like this. There we go. Oh, don't want that tile. And then let's see. Yeah, we'll use this layer. So let's just start bringing this out. And doing it this way, you can keep your pattern, and you can keep, like, I could have gone up on this one, but I'm going to get rid of this layer and start kind of again. But doing it this way of starting at the top and just increasing each layer by one tile, you keep your shapes. If you start from the bottom, you can lose shapes because like layers can literally disappear, like this one is doing right now. So keep bringing that all the way around, and there we go. We've kept our shape, but we're now stepping up in twos, and then I can keep doing the same again. Okay, time to start working on the other side, I think. Right, well, I've just kind of thrown in a first attempt, and I have to say that that's actually looking pretty damn encouraging. There's not a whole lot wrong with that. I mean, it's still very simple and basic, and it needs detailing and developing, but that's a pretty good start, I think. Yeah. I got to say, it's hard to spot too many problem areas. This area over here is a little bit problematic. It's a little bit blocky, a bit of a pile of rubble. Same down here. But generally speaking, not too bad. This upper layer obviously still requires a fair amount of work. Now, blending this mountain into my existing terrain, I thought was going to be like a real problem. But I just did some vertical layering along here, and then the same on this side, did some vertical layering, and it's kind of coming together quite nicely. Now, this feature here is very specific because I'm going to put some building stuff in here. So yeah, so that is exactly as I want it. The problem is trying to make the terrain around it look good. So I'm kind of working on this area to try and blend it in nicely. It's tricky. It is tricky. So, but slowly, little bits. So it's like, I want this to kind of come more towards this edge. So, just do little bits. Like, I mean, it comes down to the point where I'm adding kind of a block at a time to get to exactly where I want to be. It's something that, for me, requires a lot of time and a lot of patience. I still need to work on this. I'm still not happy with my pile of rubble over here. Right, let me get back to it and see if I can come up with something that approaches a finished product. Okay, so this is what 10 hours of terrain work will get you. Oh my God. Yeah, it's been a long session. It's been a long couple of sessions, actually. But I've got to say, I'm reasonably happy with the results. Now, my final tip is knowing when to stop. Okay, like, when have you done enough and you should stop? My rule of thumb, broadly speaking, is 2 hours ago. Like, whenever I've come to the end of a project, when I should have stopped was 2 hours ago. But I've got to say, I'm reasonably pleased. I struggled with this area here, and I think it's bearable, but I'm not 100% convinced. These one tile steps, I don't like that. And I've got one tile steps there, and having that and that in close proximity is not a recipe for success. So I'll probably end up tinkering around with that a little bit. I mean, I can spot like odd little bits that I go, yeah, I'm not 100% sure of that. But broadly speaking, I think the overall impression as a backdrop to this city is not too bad. Now, this flat plateau up here, there's going to be a building up here. Here, there's actually going to be a bridge. It's actually going to be a viaduct. Thank you, Picture Perfect, for correcting me because I said I was going to build an aqueduct. The aqueduct? I was going to build an aqueduct. She said, it's not an aqueduct, it's a viaduct, you freaking idiot. And she's quite right. She's not wrong. Yeah, the more I look around, the more I'm like, yeah, actually, there are some quite good bits. Now, I wouldn't call myself a terrain expert. I struggle. It's a long process for me. I'm very, very slow at developing terrain. But to be honest, I mean, if you come up with something that looks half good, I think it's worth the investment of time. I tell you what, for the end, I wonder what this would look like if we greened it up. Now, when it comes to irrigation, the best tip that I can give you is plan ahead. Because you may think to yourself, oh, you know what? I'll just throw in some water here and some trees and everything will be fine, right? I've put in like a nice big amount of water here. Everything will be fine. Just remember that elevation is a big problem. So if you want to make a mountain green, right, you better put the water at the top. You might think that's a nice place for a nice little lake, and I'll throw some trees, and we'll have some trees going up the mountain. And then you find out that, yeah, none of this is irrigated, and then it looks a bit weird. So, yeah, you need to think about your irrigation strategies in advance. And the other thing is, irrigation, it doesn't extend very far. And again, even though we've put in like quite an area of water, it's only greened a tiny little bit of this mountain. Okay, well, we'll leave it there. I hope you found this video enjoyable, stroke useful, possibly. If you did, leave me a comment. If you didn't enjoy this, if you didn't find it useful, I've got a special place for those comments. It's called RCE's channel. Just pop over there, leave the comment, it'll be fine. And if you've got any cool terrain techniques that you'd like to share, leave me a comment. Tell us all about it. Okay, picture, say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you for the next one. Peace out.